What's up guys, I'm Ethan and welcome to the first video in a series I'm calling The Beginner's Guide to Fishing. In this video series I will be highlighting both the history and importance of a single piece of fishing equipment or tackle. So let's get started. So before we get started with this week's video, I want to go about telling you guys why I'm making it and who it's for. This video series is all about just learning about equipment. There's not a lot of YouTubers out there that actually teach you about rods specifically, reels specifically. They just tell you what they use and they move on. And for a lot of the people just starting out, or a lot of the younger kids that are really trying to get into fishing, it can be kind of complicated. I mean, you can go into any place like Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, Academy Sports and Outdoors, and they've got a million different rods, but nobody tells you about all the different kinds of rods or reels or tackle that they use and what that specifically gets you. There are guys like Fluke Master that teach you about stuff like that, but no one actually kind of dives in deep and tells you about each piece individually, why they use what they use, or what the history of a piece is, or anything like that. So I'm gonna be breaking this down for you guys that are just trying to get into fishing, the kids that are just out and they're trying to learn and get better and really get into fishing and figure out why we all love it. So that's really what this series is about. I'm excited to launch this. I should have a video out every week. So without any further ado, this week's video is about rods. Rods are great pieces of equipment. So every year there are roughly 50 million Americans that go fishing, and every year that number increases just a little bit more. So as a result, fishing rods have changed and developed from a long stick to very highly technical tools that we have now. So sadly, we don't know who invented the very first fishing rod because there are stone inscriptions back about 2,000 years in both ancient Egypt and China that show people using fishing rods. It's believed that prehistoric man caught fish with their bare hands in shallow streams, but somewhere along the line, they realized how inefficient it was and they wanted to be able to catch fish in deeper water. And thus, the fishing rod was born. The first fishing rods were kind of like what you see in older movies. They're a really long stick with a string tied to the end, and you just kind of swing it out and let it drop. And that's pretty much all it is. People started coming out with rods that have eyelets like we all know and have today. And they started coming out with more flexible rods made out of metal. Then people were wanting, like I said, more sensitive rods. So they figured out a way to make them out of fiberglass, so they're real flexible, won't break, and they're a little bit more sensitive than metal. And now, more recently, we have carbon fiber and graphite fishing rods. So first rod I'm going to show you actually belonged to my great-grandfather. As you can see, it looks metal, and it's actually square. You may not be able to tell that. I'll try and get it closer. But that is, oh, hang on now. Right, here we go. That is a square fishing rod. That's how old this rod is, and it is metal. So they evolved from that into the rods you see guys like Kevin Van Dam, Mike Iaconelli using today. All carbon fiber, all graphite, real sensitive, a lot of bend, a lot of backbone. You can really set the hook on some fish, and it's great and it's fun, and it honestly makes our sport a whole lot more entertaining, because if you just had a stick and you pull on it real hard and it snaps, well, you just lost a fish. So we are very grateful for the companies that now make fishing rods, for making them so durable and flexible, and giving them eyelets so you don't snap the line so much, so your rod absorbs the impact of your line set and the fish, and all these great innovations that have come about in the last probably 60 to 70 years. Now we're going to talk, good brands for low end prices for those of you that are on a budget, and then we'll work our way up. So brands that I like that are really kind of more that introductory level. You've got H2O Express and other store brands. H2O Express is Academy Sports Store brand. I'm not sure what Cabela's and Bass Pro's brands are, but they're really kind of your entry level. They're not terribly expensive, probably 20 to 30 bucks. Then you've got Shakespeare, who makes a wide variety of rods. They even make ugly sticks like a couple I have here. They make so many packages in the intro price range, that's what I call it, that come with stuff ready to fish. They come with just a rod itself or a rod and reel. Shakespeare is very much into the entry level and getting people into fishing. So yeah, Shakespeare has a great selection at entry level price ranges, so you're not breaking the bank and you're still getting a quality item. I would say their rods, just like their basic rod and reel combos, nothing like ugly stick. Probably 20, 25, 30 bucks ish. That's for a rod and reel combo. Next, we have your intermediate price rods. These are just going to be rods. Some of these brands do offer combos, but I'm talking strictly rods. Intermediate prices intermediate price rods are going to be ugly stick, Daiwa rods, the Abu Garcia Black Max, and low end 13 fishing. Ugly stick, they're durable, they almost never break, they have a clear tip on the last 4 to 6 inches that they call the Ugly Tech sensitivity or sensitive rod tip. It's supposed to be more sensitive to let you kind of feel the bites better. Great rods, like I said, they almost never break, and they're priced at about $40 to $50 just for the rod, which isn't breaking the bank. It's not great for those of you on a budget, but it's also not terrible. It's still going to be a good rod for the price, and it's going to last you a long time. Daiwa rods, I have personally only used a Daiwa rod once. I liked the rod, but the reel I got had some issues, so I sold the combo that I bought together off. From what I've had, what I've seen, they're good rods. They're very popular. They are flexible. They have They have fiberglass, and it's a fiberglass carbon fiber mixture, or fiberglass graphite mixture that people seem to tend to like. Again, probably right around that $40 to $50 range. The Abu Garcia Black Max is available with or without the reel. The Black Max rod is good. It's, again, durable. These intermediates you're going to see are really focused more on durability, not so much sensitivity. They're not terribly expensive. They're not overpriced, but they are just a good range. I want to say the 13 fishing rods by themselves, I want to say they jump up to about 50 to 70. Don't quote me on it. I haven't looked at prices on them in a little while. Now we've got our high price rods. Your high price point rods are focused on sensitivity and a little bit of durability, because obviously they want you to spend your money on them again, so you're going to make it last long. Brands like that are going to be All-Star rods, Duckett rods, Shimano rods, the Abu Garcia Vendetta, your high-end 13 fishing. What's another one? I had another one just a second ago. Falcon. They're your really higher price point rods. These are the ones that I would put in a category as maybe not necessarily overpriced. They're all $80 to $130, $150. That's kind of pushing the limits of what I would really want to buy. They're all great rods. They focus a lot on sensitivity, so you can feel anything. If you close your eyes and drag them across the floor at a store, chances are you're going to feel the joints in the tile, because that's just how sensitive they are. Because that's what they're designed to be, is just super sensitive and durable. So that way you're gonna feel anything that your rod, that your bait hits, it's gonna hit. You're gonna feel it, and you're gonna be like, wow. Especially when you jump up from like if you go from an intro price to your high price, you're going to be feeling a huge difference between the two. Okay, now we're getting into stuff that can really confuse people a lot. Rod action. So, what is rod action? The most basic way to describe rod action is the more the rod bends, the slower the rod is. The less the rod bends, the faster the rod is. So like when people talk about having a fast action or a slow action or a medium action, it doesn't necessarily correlate with their medium heavy, although it can, which is their medium heavy, and all that is your rod power. So when you're looking at a rod, generally you'll roll it around and it'll say action, and it'll say medium heavy fast, or fast medium heavy, or slow ultralight, or slow light, or light slow. What that's saying is, as a general rule of thumb, the heavier your power gets, the faster your rod gets. Technically, you can get a medium fast or a medium heavy fast. Or if you're wanting a rod that sets the hook really hard and really quick, you want a fast action rod. If you want a rod that can zip your bait out real quick and get it back in the water, you want a fast action rod. The downside of the fast action rod, though, is that you can also set the hook too hard and pull the bait out of the fish's mouth and lose the fish you just caught, because when you pulled, the rod loaded and pulled back too quickly. Fast action rods are also very sensitive because of their stiffness, and they're generally made out of stiffer materials, so they're more rigid. So think about it as you've got this rigid thing. If you flick the end of it, vibrations move down it more quickly because it's vibrating faster at the end. So when they're made out of, faster action rods are made out of graphite or carbon fiber because they're stiff material and they're very lightweight. The downside is, generally the more graphite you get in a rod, the more the price goes up. Slow action rods are great for making long casts and catching fish that you're right on top of. They allow you more leverage to fight the fish if you're right on top of them, without having to exert all the force in the hook set. So when you set that hook real hard, it's going to bend more, so it absorbs more of the energy, and thus sets the hook more gently in the fish's mouth. Slow action rods are also called parabolic rods because they bend from bottom to tip, almost like a half moon shape. That's how much they can bend. They absorb the energy from the fish trying to make a run for it. That allows the angler to let the fish run, but not worry about having to get the hook pulled out, because again, the fish is pulling on the rod and it's absorbing more impact from that fish that's right there, so you're not risking pulling it out of the fish's mouth because the rod is pulling back on it. The downside to slow action rods is the hook set. If you have a slow action rod and you cast out 50 feet and a big old hog that's like 8 pounds comes and swallows up your bait, you may not be able to get a good hook set because your rod is absorbing that energy that's coming from you to set the hook, and it may not go, the point may not set real tight, so then you're fighting a fish on what could potentially be just the point of your hook. Rod power, I got into it a little bit earlier, but this is where I'm really going to break it down. Your rod power is also referred to as your rod weight. And a lot of times companies will use weight and action interchangeably. Just know, so I have a medium heavy ugly stick right here. So it is a medium heavy rod. It's a fast action, and ugly stick calls its action medium heavy. Well, the weight of the rod is actually an 8 to 20 pound line test. So that's going to be your rod weight, or a lot of times they'll have a weight restriction on how heavy of a bait you can throw. That is also your rod weight. Rod power is also referred to as rod weight. Rod weight is the amount of force required to get the rod to load or bend. The thickness and types of material that make up a rod also determine the rod's power and action. So the thicker and heavier the materials in a blank or the body of a rod are, typically the heavier and faster a rod is, which is where you get the terms ultralight, light, medium, medium heavy, and heavy. Now each power level defines the line rating and lure weight maximums for that rod. Now remember, there are no set parameters in which to follow. So each manufacturer has their own parameters for their rods. So what is a medium in one rod may be a medium heavy in another. Now you may be asking yourself, well, how do I know which technique goes with what rod? And if you aren't, you should be. Generally speaking, there are two types of fishing rods. There are spinning rods and there are casting rods. Spinning rods go with spinning reels and casting rods go with bait casters. As a general rule of thumb, and this is for me personally, it may be different from fisherman to fisherman, but as my general rule of thumb is, if it's a moving bait such as a crankbait or a jerk bait or a swim bait, it's going on my bait caster. If it's more of a finesse technique like a Ned rig or a Texas rig or even a jig, it's going on my spinning reel, because spinning rods and reels are what are defined as finesse fishing. And moving baits or crankbaits or spinner baits, things of that nature, are generally considered to be power fishing. So each one has a time and place. In the winter, you're typically going to use finesse style more because you're trying to finesse them into it. They're not as active, they're more lethargic, they're looking for an easy meal. Now, if you're in the middle of summer or pre-spawn and post-spawn, they're real aggressive. They're ready to hit anything that moves. They're on the hunt. So you're going to want to power fish. That's not to say that you can't use either technique in either situation, because techniques are interchangeable. It just depends on how you fish them. There you have it, guys. That is everything I know or could find about fishing rods. I hope this has helped you younger guys and you guys that are just starting to get out into fishing who are wondering what rod action and what rod power are. And I really hope this was a great refresher for those of you who have been fishing your whole life like me. I will link a few pages in the description below that cover most of the information that I covered in this video, as well as our Facebook and Instagram pages, so go ahead and give those a like and a follow. If you have any questions about rods, or maybe you have some rods that you want to share with some of the newer guys that you like, leave those down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button over here, and make sure you turn on notifications so you get notified when we post new videos. And as always, get up, get out, and go fishing.